Hi everybody, Doug here with Clearview, Doug and Gina, and we're here with Christopher Key. Christopher has been doing a lot for humanity. We'll let him kind of take it from there. Christopher, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, to start with, the establishment can't stand me because Christ is in me, is in my name. Christopher. My last name is Key, and I tell everybody don't forget it because God's given us all the keys to open up the doors that Satan never wanted unlocked. But we have to do this for God's people. But more importantly, we have to do this for God's children because they're coming for every single one of His children. I've been very blessed. I've been part of 4 national championships, 3 Super Bowls. I've been on the cover of Sports Illustrated. I've been on 60 Minutes. I knew a lot about the temple. I was a power lifter. I was a bodybuilder. I owned a bunch of health clubs. My first baby was a device called the Bod Pod. I did a lot of research at the University of Alabama many years ago with water, hydration, and body composition. And we did a lot of work with what was called hydrostatic water weighing. If you don't know what that is, it's where they put you in this big tank of water, they put you on this meat hook, and you submerge all your body underwater and you blow all the air out of your lungs. And from that, you're able to measure what's called density, mass divided by volume. I spent many hours in the lab trying to get these measurements of body fat. And it was so frustrating because it was so complicated. I had a lot of athletes that couldn't swim. Can you imagine telling an athlete that couldn't swim to get in this tank of water, sit on this meat hook, submerge himself in water, or herself in water, and blow all the air out of the lungs? You know how difficult that was.
You would think, we got you.
But it just wouldn't happen. I mean, it was so frustrating because I would literally spend 5 hours trying to get this test, and it would be a waste of time. So I never forget, I was doing my thesis, and I'm reading through some of the journals and whatnot. I come across this device that looks like this.
Really?
Looks just like this. And it was called the BOD, B-O-D, and it measured body fat, but instead of using water displacement, it used air displacement. And I'm like, holy cow, if that is real,
If it works.
if that is real and that works, that will change everything.
Yeah, now you don't have to know how to swim.
That will change everything. So
And you don't have to get wet.
don't have to get wet. So I called this 1-800 number. It was in Concord, California, and I got a guy's name on the phone named Bill Wallace, and he was the head of sales. And I'm like, dude, this is amazing. This is unbelievable. If it's real, he says, Christopher, this is real. He said, Susan Akins, Phil Dempster invented this device with over $2 million they got from NIH, and this is unbelievable. I said, well, brother, I want one. And I said, how much is it? He said, $35,000. And I'm like, wow. And I'm a young kid just graduating from grad school, and I'm like, I said, brother, I can sell this. He said, well, who are you? I said, I'm nobody, but I can sell the heck out of this.
Yeah.
He says, well, why don't you come to Las Vegas? We're going to have a conference next month, and let's sit down and talk. I said, done, I'm there. So I got on a plane, flew out to Las Vegas. Let me go back real quick because I've never told this to anybody.
You just like us, that's why.
I do. I always overdo everything. That's just, I can never just do one thing. And never forget, the year after I did this, the local news came in and wrote a story on me because I did 5 of the most stressful things in the world to do in all 1 year. And not only did I do 5 of the 6, a couple of them I did double.
Oh, wow.
Okay?
About jail, right?
No, this is at this particular time in history, I had not been to jail at all. I'd been a really good boy and not been to jail at all. But the 6 most stressful things to do in the world supposedly are, number 1, get married.
Mm-hmm. Children.
And that year, I flew out to Las Vegas. I actually got married on the same trip. Okay.
It's Spontaneously?
No, we've been dating for 7 years, and that's a whole nother story because and that's too funny. I had everything planned out. I'm very strategic in everything I do, and I had my life planned out that I didn't want to get married till I was 50, and I didn't want to have children until I was 51. Okay, because I knew what I had to do, and for myself, and I wanted to make sure that I got all my business endeavors taken care of, and then when I became a father, I could be a father and not have to worry about all my other businesses and whatnot. And I was very strategic, and
sounds like God intervened a little bit.
Yeah, and a crazy woman did too. And this woman I've been dating for 7 years, and she was 11 years older than I. And I never forget, she came to me and said, my clock is ticking, and it's now or never. And if you want children, because she knew I wanted children, she said, if you want children, we got to get married now. And I go, okay, good gracious, okay. I said, okay. But she said, I only give you one child. Only one child. And I'm like, because my dream my whole life was I wanted a son and I wanted a daughter. I wanted 2 kids. I wanted a son and a daughter. But I said, okay, done, do it. So 5 of the most stressful things to do is, number 1, get married. I got married. Number 2 was start a business. I started 3. Number 3 was buy a home. I bought 3.
Overachiever.
Just ridiculous is what it is.
I guess 3 is your favorite number.
What it is. The other one was have a death in the family, and I had 2 that year. Number 5, and this is again all in 1 year, okay? All in 1 year.
That's stressful.
Number 5 was to have children, and I had 2.
Nice.
Number 6 was divorce, and that didn't come till many years later, but I did 5 of the 6 most stressful things and did a couple of them 2 and 3 times. But let me go back to the wife one and the children real quick, because I never will forget, I'm having this unbelievable meeting, and I tell my mom, because my mom and my little sister work for me at my health clubs, and I tell my mom and sister and say, look, I got an unbelievable meeting, nobody's to come upstairs, leave me alone. So I'm in this meeting, and all of a sudden, there's this pounding on the door, and I'm like, what the hell? I told nobody to... I open up the door, and there's my ex-wife, mascara's going all down her face. She's bawling, crying. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I'm like, what is the matter? She's like, you don't understand. I was like, just what's the deal? First thing she says is, she's like, Christopher, I went to the OBGYN this morning. As soon as she said that, we'd only been trying for we just found out we were pregnant. We'd only been trying for a month. We found out we were pregnant. As soon as she said that, I'm like, she's lost the baby. No big deal. I said, we've only been trying for a couple of months. We'll try it again. No big deal. She said, no, you don't understand. I was like, baby, it's not you don't understand. You don't understand. I'm like, shut up. It's not a big deal. She said, there's 2. I said, do what? There's, yes! Yes! Thank you, Lord. Oh, my God.
You were only getting 1.
I was like, yes! I was like, Lord, I must be doing something right. I mean, because it was, and then.
To a boy and a girl, right?
And then to find out, I never forget, we went in and we found out the first one was a son. I was like, Lord, please let the other one be a little girl. And sure enough, it was a girl. And I'm like,
that's blessed.
I mean, it was. You have no idea. It was
all
unbelievable.
The tribulations you went through.
Unbelievable.
Find that out, yeah.
Unbelievable. So going back to going to Vegas and sitting down with Susan Akins and Phil Dempster and Bill Wallace, and we started talking about the bod pod, and I'm like, look, this technology is unbelievable. And I said, look, I'm nobody. I'm the least of these, but I can sell the heck out of this device. And they said, well, look, we've never had somebody that side it like this, and we've only sold like 20 units. Right. And I said, well, look, give me 12 months. Give me exclusive rights to the southeastern United States, and I'll go sell the heck out of these. Mm-hmm. I said, what do you got to lose? I was a dumb kid, didn't know anything about contracts.
How old were you at this point? I'm just curious.
I was in my early 20s.
That's young.
Yeah, I was in my early 20s, and I said, look, I can sell. You have no idea. I can take this to the next level. And they said, well, I said, what do you got to lose? And they said, well, we'll do it. we'll give you 12 months. We'll give you exclusive distribution rights in the Southeast United States, and let's see what you can do. And I love a good challenge. And I went out and sold this device to the Buffalo Bills, Indianapolis Colts, the Air Force Academy, the Naval Academy, University of Alabama, Emory University, every major university in the country. This device, the BodPod, is now the gold standard around the world.
Wow.
I mean, this technology is amazing.
That's amazing.
But again, I was a dumb idiot kid, and I didn't know anything about contracts, and I helped this company do amazing well, so much so that the then CEO of Alpo, the doll company, retired, and he ended up buying LMI and basically tore up my contract, and they went on to do very, very well.
Very nice.
So live and learn, and that's where I kind of got my in the athletic arena, because I knew all these strength and conditioning coaches. They thought I was a crazy nut, but they knew my $35,000 BodPod was the real deal. It was a real deal. So years later, my greatest accomplishment in life was the day my children were born. And that's when everything changed for me, because my children were born with one of the most rare diseases on the planet called phenylketonuria, otherwise known as PKU. It's one of the most rare diseases on the planet. My children, if they ever eat protein, it goes straight to the brain and causes the most extreme mental retardation there is.
So how did you find that out? I mean,
Beautiful.
Obviously, parents are very in tune with their children, especially when you first hold them. You kind of know their cries, if they're
Right.
wet, hungry. What were the first signs? Can you explain a little bit what
Yes.
you went through figuring that out? Because a lot of people don't know about this disease.
Correct.
And I believe that's made you who you are today.
Yes, completely.
So if you can explain a little bit about it.
Beautiful.
That would be amazing.
Well, basically, because PKU is so rare, and because if it goes undetected, the children end up being completely, totally mentally retarded at the most extreme degrees. Okay, so our government finally did something that I actually approve of. They made it mandatory that any child that was born, the very first thing they do, number one, is take their DNA.
I wonder why.
Well, they say it's to see if they have any of these diseases, which they did use it for my children. They took their DNA, and in that DNA test, that no child leaves the hospital without having done, they're able to determine whether that child has PKU or not. And that's how I was able to find out my children had PKU.
So the government finally worked for somebody for a change.
Well, not really,
Very
but
Well, at least it gave you.
They did. I mean, that is a blessing. But let me tell you a quick story about that. So they're supposed to let you know before you leave the hospital. But my wife, again, I can't stand hospitals, so we did everything we could to get out of there as fast as we can, and we were physically out of there within 48 hours. So we leave the hospital, and the next day we get a phone call from the Sparks Clinic. That is a clinic I didn't know anything about. It's in UAB, University of Alabama in Birmingham, and they call us up and they say, "Look, Mr. and Ms. Key, we need you to come down to the Sparks Clinic. We need to talk to you." I'm like, "Well, who the hell are you?" They're like, "We just need you to come down here." I'm like, "Who the hell are you?" "You just need to come down here." I was like, "Okay." So we walk in to this clinic, and me and my wife sit down, and there's probably 20 children in the room. Every single child in the room is in a wheelchair, is foaming out their mouth, and and we're holding our two precious children.
And that had to be
They're telling you.
And
That's what you have to look forward to.
and we're like, what? My wife just loses it when we walk in. She's like, what? We're looking at these kids that are perfect, and we walk into and we're like, what in the world is going on here? And we go in, talk to the Dr. Rutledge, head of the Sparks Clinic, and
They're specialists, obviously.
Yeah,
in
this
the
is
disease itself.
this is one of the most rare diseases on the planet, and we just so happen the Sparks Clinic is one of the leading researchers for PKU in the world, and it happens to be in UAB Birmingham, where I live.
Right.
So we go in, talk to Dr. Rutledge, and Dr. Rutledge says, Mr. and Ms. Key, we want to let you know that your kids have PKU. And my wife said, oh my God. And then when I'm like, well, what the hell's PKU? What is this? They're like, well, your kids can't eat or process protein. I'm like, okay, they won't eat or process protein. What do we do?
So define now a processed protein. Because a lot of people don't understand. They think of chicken, beef,
right,
fish as protein. So,
right. My kids will never eat milk or never drink milk. They'll never eat meat. They never eat chicken, fish, birthday cake, ice cream. They can never eat bean protein. Okay, and even certain fruits and vegetables have phenylalanine, which is protein. They can't. They got to be very careful with which fruits and vegetables they eat.
That goes for oils and fried foods as well.
Their diet is the most extreme of extreme. And it was such a blessing for me because I love the temple, and I thought I knew a lot about the temple with my background in exercise physiology, kinesiology. But God showed me I only knew what I'd been taught, and what I was taught was a lie, 100%. And we'll go into that. And
How old were they when you realized that?
they were 3 days old.
3 days old.
May have been 4 days old.
Would that be breast milk as well?
Yeah, because we couldn't. She's trying to breastfeed, and she was breastfeeding them, and here it is. She's giving them. They're crying and colic and everything, and we're like, "What the hell's going on?" We didn't.
Wow.
And then we find out that their stomach and everything else, their brain, everything's freaking frying because because their body can't. And supposedly, me and my ex-wife both have the recessive PKU gene, and it's unbelievably rare, and supposedly every time we were to get together, if we were to have children, we got a 50-50 chance of her and I having PKU babies. Wow. But for us to have fraternal twins that were PKU is like winning the lottery 300 times over. I mean, that is extremely rare. But it was a blessing because I can't imagine having my son with PKU or my daughter with PKU and the other one not. Right. Because this gave them a partner to go through with them. Yeah. Okay, to go through with them. And when they first told me this, I'm a powerlifter, I'm a bodybuilder, all I did was eat protein. Protein was everything I had. And I say to Dr. Rutledge, I'm like, well, do I need to become a vegetarian? She's like, no. She says, Christopher, you got to teach your kids that they're different. Okay, that they're different. And that God made them different. And I was like, thank God, because, I love my protein, But I would have done it for my children. I really wished I would have, knowing what I know now. So anyway, we find out my kids have PKU. They can't break down protein in any form of the fashion. They have a medical formula that was created specifically for them that gives them all their essential amino acids, that they can physically live off this formula, okay? And this is a cool story here, because when they were 4 years of age, Dr. Rutledge said, look, eating is a very social thing. If you want your children to fit into society, you got to teach them to eat. So, okay, well, what do we do? She says, but you got to be very careful with what they eat.
And you had to monitor.
You have to monitor everything. And I said, well, okay.
And it's hard at that age because they want to put everything in their mouth at that point. And they see someone else eating something, they're darting for the table and trying to put it in their mouth.
So,
having children.
So, the doc said, we're going to start your children with apples, tomatoes, and watermelon.
The test diet, just like if it was an allergy reaction.
We're going to start them with apples, tomatoes, and watermelon. I said, okay, perfect. 30 days, we're giving them apples, tomatoes, and watermelon. They're loving it. They're, because they've never eaten before. They're 4 years of age. They've never eaten. They're eating and eating and eating and eating. They're loving it. And I get a phone call. See, every 30 days since birth, we have to prick my children's finger to test their PKU levels, because as long as they stay in check, they live perfectly normal lives. If they go unchecked, stay high for too long, it causes the most extreme mental retardation. Their body can't break down protein. It goes straight to the brain and eats up the brain.
How old are they now?
24.
24.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And they are perfect.
Awesome.
My kids, I believe, and again, I'm biased because I'm their father, but I believe they're the most healthy children in the world.
Yeah.
And we'll go into why here in a second, why I believe they're the most healthy children in the world. Okay? So going back to that
30 days.
30 days, eating apples, tomatoes, and watermelon, we get a phone call from the Sparks Clinic that says, Mr. McKee, what are you doing? I said, what? She said, your children's levels are higher than the day they were born.
Oh, wow.
Why are you giving your kids protein? I'm like, look, Doc, I would never, ever give my kids protein. What do you, I said, that must be a that must be a false positive. So you go back and redo the test. We're not giving my kids no freaking protein. So they go back, redo the test. 24 hours later, they call me back and say, Mr. Key, we need you to come down here. We need to talk. I said, what do you mean? She said, we need to talk. I said, why? We just need to talk. I'm like, okay. So we get in the car. We go down to the Sparks Clinic. And we have a team of 11 doctors. Because, again, my kids are like rare of rare. I mean, there's like a freak science project. They're PKU. And we sit down, and Dr. Rutledge introduced me to these two other people. And they say, Mr. Key, I can't remember their name because I wanted to punch both of them. Said, this is such and such. They're with DHR. DHR in Alabama are the people that take your children.
Oh, great.
Those are the people that take your children
We know about them.
when you mistreat your children. Said, Mr. Key, this is such and such with DHR. If you don't stop feeding your kids protein, you're going to have to deal with them. I'm like, do what? If you don't quit giving your kids protein, you're going to have to deal with them. I'm like, I'm giving my kids apples, tomatoes, and watermelon. Like you told me to. What do you mean I don't have to deal with them? That's what you told me to give them, Mr. Key. You have to be giving your kids protein. I said, no, I'm not. Mr. Key, we've presented you.
So basically, they were kind of forcing you into giving them or they were accusing you, is what my understanding, right?
They're saying, look, your kids' levels are off the chart.
So you are somewhere sneaking it in, or doing
Somehow you're giving your kids protein.
You're poisoning your kids.
You're poisoning your kids. If you don't stop, they're going to take your children away. I'm a researcher. I know for a fact I was giving my kids apples, tomatoes, and watermelon. That was the only thing I was giving them.
Yep.
So I began to research. Come to find out,
Apples
the apples,
are protein.
the tomatoes,
All of it.
the watermelon, they were what is now called genetically modified organisms.
GMOs.
GMOs. I didn't know anything about GMOs 20 plus years ago.
I don't think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about them.
I think a lot of people know now.
No, they don't at all. But what I found out was my apples, tomatoes, and watermelon
We're being manipulated.
had a pig gene in there because the pig gene makes them bigger. The bigger they are, the more money they make because they make their money per pound.
Right. It's all about money, everything.
All about money. They also had a frog gene because the frog gene helped them survive the cold weather better.
That's just a watermelon.
That's everything.
No, this was all of them had
All
the
three of them.
pig gene, the frog gene were in the apples, tomatoes, and watermelon.
And that is the GMO.
That,
I gotcha. Gotcha.
I'm like, holy cow.
So basically, that lumps back into wonderful Bill Gates and what they're currently trying to do with our food supply and water supply and things like that.
How we got
Completely.
here.
Completely.
Yep.
But guys, that was such a blessing for me because as I go back now, I didn't know but what I was taught when my children were born. So let's go back to the present. My kids are born July 30th, 1998. My greatest accomplishment of life. I found out my children have PKU. I go to the Sparks Clinic. They tell me all about PKU, this, that, and the other, and basically says, Mr. Key, you gotta test and prove anything that goes in their temple. Anything that goes in your temple, you gotta test it.
Yep.
Anything. I'm already pretty anal, but this put me at the next level. You have children,
Yes.
and you
And
know,
grandbabies, and- yeah.
you'll do anything for your children. And it was such a blessing for me because I didn't know what I didn't know. I had no clue. But I knew I had to do what my Lord commanded me to do, and that was test and prove all things. And I was given these precious twins, and they had this rare disease, so I'll never forget. I go into the pediatrician's office, and I go in and I tell the pediatrician that, you know, this is Colin Grace, and they have PKU, and he's like, oh, wow. I've only read about that in textbooks. I've never had a child with PKU, much less two. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And I was like, yeah, wow. I said, well, Doc, what can you tell me about these vaccines? He says, Mr. Key, I'm glad you asked that, because your children are part of this new schedule where they will receive 72 vaccines before they're 18 years of age. And I'm like, wow.
I believe now they bumped that up as well, correct? Currently it's 78.
Yes.
And now they're starting to
And more and more.
more and more, especially for our age, you know, 50 and older, they're starting another.
Right.
I don't know if you know that. in
I have.
Florida.
And that was just because they ate the GMOs, right?
Can I say that again?
That's why because they ate the GMOs, why they were telling me you needed to give them more shots.
No. This is
This is
okay.
their scheduled.
Oh,
Well,
this is scheduled.
yeah, we're going back now.
So
You know, I didn't
we're
find
going
out about the GMOs till they were 4. Now we're going back to birth. This is when
Okay,
they're about 2 weeks old, and we go into the pediatrician's office, and we found out they have PKU. And I was like, you know, what can you tell me about these vaccines? And he said, well, your kids are part of this new schedule. All kids at this time are part of this new schedule where every single child in America, before they enter school, they're supposed to have, before they're 18 years of age, they're supposed to have 72 of these bioweapons. Before they enter kindergarten, there's like 20 or 30 shots. Once they enter 5th grade, there's another 40 shots, so on and so forth. And I said, well, wow, Doc. I said, well, Doc, I think I had 8. I said, well, Doc, can I see a study? Because I love, you know, with my background in exercise physiology, kinesiology, I love research. I love seeing double-blind, randomized studies. That's what I got my kicks off of reading this crazy stuff. But again, I wanted to know about the temple. So I said, Doc, can I see a study? He said, sure. He says, Christopher, there's all kinds of studies. They're everywhere. They're all over the place. I was like, okay. I said, can I see one? He said, right now? I said, hell yeah, right now. I said, you're about to inject my children with this new schedule of these new vaccines. I said, I got to see a study, brother. You ain't touching my freaking kids till I see a study that this new schedule's safe.
And they're everywhere.
They're everywhere, so what's the big deal? He said, well, Mr. Key, nobody's ever asked me. I said, well, I'm asking you. I need to see a study. He says, well, Mr. Key, I'm going to have to go find one. I said, I can wait. He said, well, I mean, I can't go find one right now. He says, I'll have it ready at your next appointment. I said, okay. So I never forget, 7 days later, we go back in, and the nurse has 3 shots up for my daughter, 3 shots up for my son, and she's about to inject them. And I'm like, ma'am, what are you doing? She said, well, giving your kids the vaccine. I said, no. I said, Doc was supposed to show me the studies that this new schedule was safe. I said, me and Doc need to talk before you do anything.
Right.
We need to talk.
See, and I think that's one of the current problems we have.
Oh, boy.
Society now is just so complacent with entrusting these doctors, and they're not researching, and they're not looking, you know, especially with newborns and younger children and toddlers. They're not realizing the after effects of all the vaccines or
Right.
doing the investigations of what's actually in them. So good for you that you.
Well, it's just one of those things. I was blessed because I really don't think I would have looked. Had my kids not been born with the PKU, I wouldn't have questioned it. And I was always that person that questioned all things. But this was a moment in time where God said, brother, you got to test and you got to prove all things. And
do your
it
research
it
protect them.
it
Your
made me
safety.
who I am now. And it was such a blessing because it's why I am who I am and why I know what I know. And that's why everybody thinks I'm a crazy nut. But I was forced to do what every single one of you should be doing. And the thing that bothers me so much is, I don't talk about this much, but I'm dyslexic, I'm LD, I I'm ADD, I'm ADHD, I'm D of D of D. I'm dumb of dumber. I can barely read. I can barely read. And if I can do this research, if I can test and prove all things, you guys have no excuse, zero excuse, because you are responsible for those children. And the thing that drives me crazy, because I can barely read, and I sit there and read these studies. I didn't read these studies because there weren't no studies. I sit there and read this stuff, and I'm like, what in the world?
Where's the evidence?
How can I understand this and these medical doctors can't? So going back to that medical doctor, he comes into the room that day. He won't look at me. He's looking all around the room. He says, Christopher, there are no studies. But Christopher, they have to be safe. Brother, they've been approved by the FDA. They've been approved by the CDC, the AMA. What's your problem with them? And I'm like, dude, what's my problem with it? I said, brother, you took an oath. You took an oath to do no harm. You're telling me there's no studies that this new schedule's safe, and you just injected it into all those children, and you know those other children you just came from, you just injected into their body. You're telling me there's no studies, and you're wanting to inject in my children? You better leave, brother, because we're about to have some issues here. I left. And that was when everything changed for me. And what I want to tell you guys right now, because I learned this nearly 10 months ago, I was telling the same story in Atlanta with Maria Zack, and I was interviewing a full-term congressman who is a practicing medical doctor. And I'm telling him this same story I just told you, and he stopped me and says, Christopher, do you know the medical doctors in America have no longer taken an oath to do no harm since 1972. Yeah. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Nope. He says, Christopher, 1972, everything changed because the Roe versus Wade. When Roe versus Wade, and they could kill babies, the medical doctors could no longer take an oath to do no harm. And I'm like, wow.
That also goes back to a lot of people don't realize when salespeople, if you're in a doctor's office, and I'm sure people have seen it, you've seen it, I know you've seen it, waiting, and then you see the salesperson come in with all their little new prescriptions and pills, and they go in, and those are how our nurses, doctors in these facilities are being
educated.
It's just their job.
And they're just selling. They're not medically inclined. Mm-hmm. They don't do research on what they're selling into the facilities itself, and a lot of people don't look at it that way. So basically, these doctors, nurses that are injecting our children or even going to get prescriptions are being fed through, and you know that, and you know that as well, through the medical, through the pharmaceutical.
Being paid for it.
Being paid for it. So, and basically what they do is they hear some samples, say, you're my doctor, and I'm a salesperson, I'm going to come in and I'm going to say, this is for what. The more you prescribe,
the more money
will
you
take you on a vacation.
Yeah, and they do kickbacks, they get money. So for every prescription that us, we the people, go out and get filled at these pharmacies, they get kickbacks, not just from the pharmacy itself. It goes back to the office, it goes back to the nurse, the insurance. So it is a big chain of money laundering is what I literally call it.
So I have a question. I don't remember what you called it because it's something different in Alabama, but I hear CPS.
DHR is what it's called in Alabama.
Yeah, so at this point, did you hear back from them, or did they just kind of disappear?
Well, because again, we went completely organic with my children's fruits and vegetables, and we tested their levels 30 days later, and their levels were back in check. So they had no reason.
No reason to come back.
Right, okay. Because their levels were in check now.
Okay.
So that was perfectly fine. And guys, that's where
you gave them no reason to come back, basically.
Right.
So, okay.
So the moral of the story is trust no one.
No one.
Plain and simple. I mean, the only person that can take care of this temple is you. And if you're a mother or father, you're the one responsible for taking care of that child. I think it's to at least 16 or 18. There are different laws for different states and whatnot. But you're responsible for those kids. And you have to test and prove all things. And this is all about money, and this is all about power. And right now what is happening here in America and around the world is you have a satanic, Luciferian mass eugenics. And everybody says, Christopher, you're a conspiracy theorist. No, I'm not. I deal in facts. And I've studied this backwards, forwards, and sideways for 24 years because of my children. My children, I believe, are the 2 most healthy children in the world. Why? Because they've never taken a bioweapon. Please hear me. Bioweapon. I didn't say vaccines because COVID is a bioweapon. But the flu shot, the MMR vaccine, polio vaccine, every single one of them are all bioweapons. You got medical doctors, Dr. McCullough, Dr. Malone, that tell you this is a bioweapon. But guys, please take your flu shot. Take your MMR vaccine. Make sure you get your hepatitis B. That's the one that drives me crazy. How in the world can any medical doctor with a clear conscience tell me that my child, before they're 24 hours old, should be given the hepatitis B vaccine? Do you understand? Hepatitis B, mother is tested to make sure she doesn't have it. So now they know that child does not have hepatitis B. Now the only other way for that child to get hepatitis B is to go have sex or to share intravenous needles. Do they really believe that our children are going back to the neonatal and they're having a freaking orgy and they're back there sharing intravenous needles? I mean, think about that. You know, I told this to a pharmacist the other day, and he said, well, Christopher, you know, it's still possible that they could get injected with a needle. And I'm like, well, brother, you guys need to do your job, because the chances, I mean, you're telling me you got to inject my child with the hepatitis B vaccine because you're afraid that somebody might accidentally inject them with the needle that has hepatitis. I mean, come on. Right. You're freaking insane.
Scare tactics.
It's all scare tactics. Yeah. Not to mention, the hepatitis B vaccine is only good for 2 years. Only good for 2 years. So at least wait till your children are at least 6. I mean, surely to God, our kids aren't going to share needles and have sex till they're at least 6, Mike. You know, what are your thoughts? I mean, maybe 6.
I don't think so.
I mean, when I studied that one and read that, I'm like, this is pure evil. This is 100% evil. Do you understand? When they give that child the hepatitis B vaccine, instantaneously, the brain begins to bleed.
I was going to say shut down.
It begins to bleed instantaneously. That's why they have to follow that up with the vitamin K shot, because the vitamin K shot will make it coagulate to stop the bleeding.
Wow.
This is pure freaking evil. Pure evil.
And they get away with it because we don't look into it. We don't take the time out of our day to dig into it and see what they're force feeding us.
Well, but then that's because we, the people, have all been bartered with. We've got to make a living. You know, we got to bring home the money. You know, we got to pay, which is completely, totally illegal and unlawful. It's completely, completely, and it's all about. It's all about divide and conquer. It's all about diversions. You know, whenever you get a free moment, they got to give you your bread and circuses. You got your football, your basketball, it's all about keeping you away from the truth. They always have to have you diverted so you can never see what the puppet master's doing. Right. So you never have the time to go do the research. I was forced to take the time. And that's why I know what I know, and that's why I am so blessed, and I'm so thankful for COVID. You have no idea how happy
that made you.
You have no idea, because for 22 years, I thought I was crazy. I really did. I'm like, how can I know this? How can I know this? And these other people not. Because I can barely read. How can I know this? Because my father would always say, Christopher, how can you know this? And all these doctors don't know that. I mean, how can you know this and they not? I was like, hell, I don't know.
Yeah, we're just stupid.
You know, I mean, I don't know. But that's why I so appreciate COVID, because it has done more to wake people up than anything has, because people are dying suddenly. They are dying from myocarditis, they're dying from blood clots, strokes, heart attacks. 1,000 elite athletes have dropped dead on the playing field, and nobody's talking about it.
Talk about your NFL experience a little bit. That's another part of your story.
I was part of 4 national championships, 3 Super Bowls. I was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. I knew that Christopher Key was the least of these, and nobody would listen to Christopher Key, and I was fine with that. But I studied these sociopaths, I studied these Luciferians, and I knew how they control the masses. How do they control the masses? They control the masses with that tell-a-lie vision. You know why they call it the tell-a-lie vision? It lies, it tells double lies on Sunday with your 501c3 corporation churches that all shut down. They all put masks on. They all tell their sheep to take a bioweapon. You priests, your preachers, all of you, you're going to rot in hell. Every one of you are. Because you are the leaders. And you are telling me, we don't want to get political. You have no idea how many churches I went to and I said, please, let us show you pandemic. Let us show you died suddenly. Let us show you vax. And they all said, Christopher, that's too political. Too political. There's 2 sides to every story. Let them see the other side.
The problem is a lot of these churches are 501(c)(3)s. So they lose their funding.
Of course they do.
And they'll have to pay into whatever they'll have to pay into. So tax-wise, things like that, they have a higher bracket where donations, things like that, which are nefarious to begin with some of the 503c churches, and you know that, ties into all of it.
Yes, it does, completely.
That's how they keep the preachers and everything in check. Because if they start having that talk, they're going to lose their job.
Yeah. A lot of time on Truth Tour too, looking for venues and booking, obviously what we've been doing for the last year almost.
Is going through the VAs.
Is going through VAs, going through
the
and
BD. What is it?
We've reached out to churches, and you wouldn't believe how many churches.
I know. They don't want nothing to do with it.
They don't want anything to do with it.
Bunch of freaking pansies.
Yeah. And at that point, I started calling
VFWs. That's what did a lot of stuff to do.
Yes.
Yeah, well, the VFWs are the veterans
that
support not just patriots, but they're just like us that want to get the word out there. Now, in regarding all of COVID, going back to COVID, when you started hearing the word COVID and the pandemic and things like that, what are some of the things that went through your, obviously you were awake in regarding pandemics and things like that, and then you heard about the vaccines with COVID. How did you approach that with your children? How did you talk to them about that? What was your reaction? Because obviously now you've started what was called vaccine police. That I'm sure started with the whole COVID, correct?
No.
Or was that prior? So a lot of people are confused with that, so I want you to touch base on it.
Well, what people don't understand, nearly 10 years ago, the government came in, fined me hundreds of millions of dollars, and I had to agree to no longer practice in the state of Alabama. I thought it was for 10 years, but what I realized this past year that it was for life. Wow. I can never do anything in my great state of Alabama involved with health, wellness, and pain management for life. So for 7 years, I went away. I was very much out in the movement, screaming and hollering about vaccines and GMOs and fluoride. And then the government came in 9 years ago, but 7 years ago, I became a mover. I couldn't do anything in my field, and I went away, and I started moving furniture for a living. I never worked a day in my life. I've always owned my own business, and every day I got up to go to work, it was never work for me because I was helping people, and I so enjoyed what I was doing. I'd go to work at 5 o'clock in the morning. I wouldn't get home at 10 o'clock at night. And I'm looking down. I'm like, how in the heck have I been here over 13, 14 hours? And it just feels like I got up because I love what I was doing. And I became a mover, and it sucked. It sucked.
Hard work.
Yeah.
It's,
you did what you had to do.
I did what I had to do.
To survive.
I had huge child support payments, and I did what I had to do. And I supported my children. And I'm like, surely to God, somebody else is going to pick up the torch and start, keep doing what we've been doing. And a year before COVID hit, I've been reading many of their white papers. I've been reading the Agenda 2030, and
you knew this was coming.
I knew this was coming. And not many people know this, but I put out a video because I knew what they were going to do. I knew what was happening, and I put out a video, and y'all can watch it, where I worked with the government, and I was the vaccine police, and I was Papa Rothschild's great-great-great-grandson, okay, in this satire video. And
not true.
It was complete satire.
Careful.
And
Careful, somebody might spin this.
and I was the great-great-great-grandson of Papa Rothschild, and I was the vaccine police, and we had compiled a list. Me and Papa Rothschild compiled a list of 11 people that if they didn't join us, we were going to take them out. If they continue to talk about what we were doing, we were going to take care of them. Those people on the list were Mike Adams, Robert Kennedy Jr.,
One still talking.
Dill Bigtree, Ty Bollinger, Sherry Tenpenny, Zach Bush, Dr. McCullough, and I forget what his girlfriend's name was, because she was the only woman on the list. And I said some really interesting things about her. It was all satire, too. There was one other one, and the 11th person, you know who the 11th person was?
Christopher.
Yes, it was.
Thank God they never stopped talking.
I was the 11th person on the list. And if you remember, the government came out with a list. And I was pissed because I wasn't on that list.
Right.
I do remember that.
You remember that list?
We're all on lists now.
Right, but I wasn't on that major list, and I was pissed. But it was so interesting. And guys, y'all need to go watch that video, because this was done a year prior to COVID. And to finish off the video, it was priceless, I thought. To finish off the video, I'm talking about we're coming for Christopher Key, and all of a sudden, Papa Rothschild comes in upstairs, because I'm downstairs talking about this. And Papa Rothschild comes in upstairs, and he hollers down and says, "Son, the Bushes are here, and they got Hillary with them. And they brought a little one. And we're going to have some fun. You want to join us?" And I say, "Well, how old is this one?" "It's 6. I'll be up there shortly, Pop-Pop."
Perfect age, right? For those.
Yeah. Guys, this is real. That was satire. But when you understand how satanic, Luciferian, Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, the Bushes are, all those, Obamas, anybody, I believe, it's my personal opinion, anybody in that position of power, I believe they have every single one of them have sold their soul to Satan. But the cool thing is, every single one of them can repent and ask for forgiveness, and they will be forgiven. That's how easy our God is.
Right.
When they truly repent, they can all be forgiven.
But will they?
Will they? And that's why I pray for every single one of you every single day. Because if you don't, there's a special place in hell for you. But more importantly, I believe Nuremberg 2.0 is going to happen right here very soon, and you will I hope it never happens, but I believe you will be hung. That's why I do everything I can about presenting my documents, presenting my affidavits to these pharmacists, to these doctors, to these presidents, to these House of Representatives, to the senators, letting them know I love them, I come in peace, but if you give one more shot, if you do not stop this from this day forward, you have no longer plausible deniability, and you personally, you cannot hide behind the corporate veil. We have pierced the corporate veil, and you personally could and would be hung.
You are complicit.
And that's what this is about, is putting these people on notice. And that's what I spent most of my time doing, is putting these politicians, putting these pharmacists on notice, because guys, they no longer have plausible deniability. And if you haven't read my 11 undeniable facts regarding all vaccines, please go to my website, vaccine-police.com. That is one of the most important documents I think we have, because once you share that document with your pharmacist, with your doctor, you send me back that you've served them, I'm compiling a list. And that list is over, I think, 3,000 medical doctors now, 100 senators, over 150 House of Representatives, President Trump, Ferret Fauci, Bill Gates. And when that medical doctor does not present those 11 undeniable facts to that patient, and that patient dies or is damaged, we then can go after that medical doctor criminally and civilly. But more importantly, we can go after all 100 of those senators, all those House of Representatives, because in my documents I said, look, this is the evidence, and if you don't stop this from this day forward, you individually are responsible.
Right.
Plain and simple. And that's
not just your job anymore.
Not at all. And this, guys, this is so powerful. I did this nearly 15 years ago in my great state of Alabama. I kept getting all these phone calls from all these moms and dads saying, Christopher, you know, they're telling me my children have to get these vaccines to enter school, to enter 5th grade. And I said, look, the law clearly states in Alabama, and it's different in all states, but in Alabama, the law is, yes, you have to get vaccinated, or you can have a medical and or religious exemption, okay? But they don't tell you that.
Well, they don't honor them anyway.
Well, they
push back.
They push back, but if you push back, you can force it. It takes a lot of work, a lot of standing your ground. But usually, what they use, they intimidate you, and most people bow down. I don't bow down. That's why I've been to jail. I've been to court. I'll keep doing this because I know I'm on the right side of the law, and it's very simply God's law. I follow one law, that's God's law. As long as I don't harm the hair on another man or woman's head, or I trespass on their person, all these other things are statutes and codes, and they don't apply to me. Yeah. Plain and simple.
Money-making schemes.
But going back to Alabama, all these parents came to me and says, Christopher, and I said, look, the law clearly states you have a medical and religious exemption. So what I did was, I wrote about 50 principles in Alabama. And I said, look, again, you have to understand, for every action is equal and opposite reaction. Fear is a huge motivator. Fear motivated all these people to take this vaccine. But why can't we use this fear to motivate them?
Right.
Okay, so what I did was, I took a pen and I wrote a letter to all these principals, and I said, look, do you know the law, the Alabama law clearly states, yes, you have to be vaccinated, but you can have a medical and or religious exemption. And do you know that the vaccine companies can no longer be sued since 1986 because of the Vaccine Injury Act? Because that's when President Reagan passed the Vaccine Injury Act that exempt all vaccine companies of any and all liability. So the vaccine companies are protected, but you are not. And if you do not tell the people that they have a medical and religious exemption, if they then take that vaccine and they drop dead or damaged, do you know that you individually can be sued and you no longer have plausible deniability? Will you fix this? every one of the principals wrote me back. Everyone wrote me back and said, Mr. Key, we're so sorry.
Yep.
We had no idea. We have fixed it on our website now. We have fixed it on our letter sent home to the parents. And we now make sure they know they have a medical and religious exemption. This is where I took fear.
That is amazing.
And I don't like doing that. But I saw how they were doing it for evil and I was doing it for God.
Right.
And that's when this whole vaccine thing came back out again. I went to my Board of Education. I did the same thing. I'm like, look, brother, you're telling me I got to put on a mask. Okay. But you also have to honor my constitutional rights, my medical condition, my religious exemption. And if you don't, and I'm damaged, you're liable. And they all laughed at me. They all made fun of me. They called the sheriff. They called the police. They all took me out. So they all made a spectacle of it. And then they sent the documents to their attorneys. And they all looked at it and they're like, it's very possible and probable that he could come for your home, your pension, retirement. And every one of them said, they had a meeting like 2 weeks later, and they all said, look, Jefferson County School District, we strongly encourage all the children of Jefferson County to wear a mask, but they don't have to. We all strongly encourage when the vaccine comes out that they take it, but they don't have to. And that's all I wanted, was for them to honor my medical and religious and constitutional rights. And that's what they should be doing. Give us a choice. Because look, if your masks work, why do you care? If I have 2 masks on and a pantyhose, why do you care? If your vaccines work, why do you care whether I've taken my vaccines and had 5 boosters? If they work, you're safe. Leave me alone. This is my temple. This is my choice. Leave me alone.
A lot of people don't realize that they do, mandate's not a law. They will get pushed back, but
Scared to say something.
they're scared.
Yeah.
And I believe, this whole movement started with the children, as obviously you figured that out the hard way. I also believe it's going to end with the children, and I believe that we also need more children. The parents need to vocalize it to the children. If something is not right, have the children stand up in these schools, because I think more powerful than the parents backing our children is those children actually rising, and that's where I see a lot of this is going to stop, to be honest with you.
You're 100% correct. Where we change this narrative, plain and simple, 2 ways.
Yeah.
The 2 most important way to change this narrative, number 1, is the power of film.
Yeah.
These documentaries, these interviews that you guys are doing is how we change the narrative. But number 2, it's through the children.
Yeah.
We've got to do everything we can to stop the indoctrination of our children and get to the children and show them what is actually happening. Let them see that the water is poison, the food is poison, the herbs are poison, the vaccines are poison, and educate the children. The toothpaste. When you start giving this to the children, that's why they're scared to death of TikTok. They are scared to death of TikTok, because TikTok is Chinese. No, it is showing truth. But even TikTok, just this morning, I put out a video where I went to Whole Foods yesterday, and I showed that the chicken at Whole Foods was magnetized. And usually I promote my videos, because the one way to get it out there is you spend money. Money is power, and you can promote it and get it seen by more. They said first that I couldn't promote it because it went against their standards. And then I get a strike saying that they've taken my video down. Taking it down.
Familiar with that.
And this is on TikTok.
No, they don't want the truth out
They
there.
don't.
That's the hard.
Free speech
Government
is
propaganda.
free speech is no longer free, and that's why it's so important for you people out there that are listening to this. You don't understand. You don't understand the power that each and every one of you individually has, and they don't want you to know, because you don't have to be boots on the ground like we are. You don't have to be out in front of the boards of education, out in front of the pharmacists, out in front of the medical doctors, raising hell like I do and these guys do. You, behind your keyboard at home, can take this documentary, take this interview, and just share it with one person. One single person. 1 turns to 2, 2 turns to 4, and before you know it, 8 billion souls around the world will know this satanic Luciferian mass eugenics that is being carried out right here, right now. We're in the midst of the 6th extinction right now. Right. And people aren't talking about this. And you guys, your children have no future. 0 future if we don't stand up, if we don't speak up right now. Plain and simple.
On your website, do you have anything or tools for parents on how to speak to their children about, kind of, especially the teenagers now? They're very influenced by not just their peers, but teachers or their so-called friends, and almost being bullied into not saying something, right, or trying to fit into the popular side, or the good crowd, or the cheerleading crowd, or the football crowd, whatever crowd they want to be into. Are you eventually going to roll out something where parents have tools to go and speak to their children and bring awareness to them how they can stand up or rise? Because I think that's where our future is going,
yes,
like we had spoken about.
Again, I've got so many different projects going on. That is something I haven't focused on, but that's something that I'm looking for young journalists. Mm-hmm. I'm looking for the 12-year-old, exactly, the 16-year-old, that is on the right side of history, that wants to get in front of a camera and talk about these things, because it's one thing to hear I talk about it, you talk about it, but it's another when they can hear their other peers talking about this. Right. Just the other day in Canada, there's this young 16-year-old who said he thought there were only 2 genders in a Catholic school in Canada, that he said he followed God's law, and there was only a man and there's only a woman. And because of him saying that, he was suspended from a Catholic school in Canada. Of course. They put him in, they arrested him, I think 2 or 3 times, and he's still speaking out about this. So now, because they can't get him to stand down, because this young man has freaking gonads, thank God, son, I so appreciate you for speaking up about your faith. Speaking up, because guys, there's only a male and a female. That's all there is. All these other things are because the reason why you're a transgender is because of the toxins in the vaccines, in the water, in the food, in the air. That's why you don't know who you are. Do you know you were injected MRC-5, the aborted fetus, little baby boy, was injected into you, along with WI-38, the little baby girl aborted fetus. They've injected both male and female into you, and you don't know who you are. I understand that. I understand that. And this young man spoke up about that. He was suspended from school. He was arrested. And now his mother and father, who works for the school, have now been put on leave of absence. Mm-hmm. Now they're going after his family. Guys, we got to stand up. They can't take us all out, but so many of you are living in fear. With me, I don't care. They can't take nothing else from me. I tell everybody, and they're like, well, Christopher, aren't you worried they're going to kill you? No, because I know God will protect me, because I will make God crazy. If they kill me, I've been saved, so I can't go to hell, so I got to go to heaven. And God don't want me there, because I will drive him crazy, because I got so many freaking questions from him. And he's like, no, you're not coming up here. You guys are stuck with him, so y'all got to deal with him. So y'all got to deal with me. Plain and simple. I've come to do what Jesus did and more. And I've got a lot more work to do. I've done a lot. I got a lot more work to do, but I need your help. We need your help, because this is about our children and our grandchildren. Quit being divided. We are so freaking divided.
But that's what they want.
Of course it is. They've done it by design.
Confusion. They want the division. They
want you to be a Republican or Democrat.
Right. White or black, Catholic or freaking Muslim. I mean, this is all about divide and conquer. Because these guys, they're pure evil, but they are united. Yep. They are united. And a lot of that uniteness is because they got dirt on everybody, because they've all slept with freaking the little baby children. They've all killed this and killed that. So they got all the dirt. So they have to stay united. And that's why we got to come together. This movement is all about ego. It's all about me. And this is not me. This is all about God's children. We got to come together.
Imagine if we all came together. There's what, maybe a couple thousand of these?
There's 8 billion
people,
of us.
And there's 8
Billion of us. You know, we win this. We've already won this, but it's a matter of how many childs, how many adults they take to hell with them. And that's why it's so important for my Christian brothers and sisters to get off your knees. Quit waiting to get beamed up. God never said to sit around and do nothing. He said go speak His word. Go speak His word to His children. Help. We got to, because they are coming for all of us. Plain and simple. And we got to get this information out there, because the death that is coming is like nothing we've ever seen. That's why here in Boynton, we're doing what we're doing is we're teaching you. We're teaching every one of you how to be your own doctor. How you can take this temple that God created perfectly.
Take control of yourself and your own well-being.
Create it perfectly. And you just give this temple real water, real food, real supplements, real herbs, real frequency, real air. Love yourself, love your neighbor. You heal yourself.
And it's all being denied from you from the government.
It's not real hard. And that's what's so powerful, when you realize how simple God's word is and how simple this temple is. We win. Plain and simple. And that's why I'm doing everything I can to educate you, the people, about how to take care of the temple. Because when the people around the world finally understand Rockefeller medicine, when they finally understand how this is all eugenics and how everything they've done since the late 1800s is all about mass eugenics, the people will never trust their medical doctors ever again. And that's why it's so important for you people to educate yourself and understand the government is not here to protect you. They are here to protect the corporations. But more importantly, you need to understand you are the government. We are the government. They work for us. And they have forgotten that because we have forgotten it, and we've allowed them to control every single thing in our life. They forced most of you to put a mask on. I'm like, hell no. I will never, ever cover my face. I don't care how many times you put me in jail. I don't care. I will never. Number one, this face is pretty, I think. Number two, you can't go preach God's word. If you cover, you can't preach His word. Plain and simple.
You can't breathe.
You can't breathe. And that's the thing that drives me crazy. The medical studies that are out there to show you masks do absolutely nothing, but then COVID happens and they're all buried. You know, you got to go to the 50th page to find these. You know, you medical doctors, what happened to you guys? I mean, that's what drives me crazy is you medical doctors, your pharmacists, you can't be that stupid. I mean, you guys are very well educated. It only takes a little bit of research to understand the number one side effect of taking this bioweapon is myocarditis, blood clot, strokes, heart attack, and death. Death. D-E-A-T-H. Death. You take the bioweapon, you will die. God gave you an immune system. Why don't you build it up? Do we really believe God screwed up so bad that we have to be injected at birth with aborted fetuses? I mean, where is the logic there?
Common sense.
I mean, it so hurts my head when I try to sit down and really understand this, and it's programming. It plain and simply is programming. That's why they call it TV programming. They program you to their narrative, and their narrative is satanic and it's Luciferian, and they do it out of fear. Sigmund Freud, in the early 1900s, his job was to go and figure out how we function, what made us tick. And they realized it. And they know exactly how to turn our buttons and put us in mass hypnosis. And that's what's happened for the last 2 years. The people have been mass hypnosis. And I believe it's through the vaccine. I believe it's through the 5G. I believe they're using frequencies somehow or another to control the masses. Do you know in the early 60s, in the movie theaters, they were able to take frequencies and put it behind the screen, and they saw where people, by using these frequencies, bought popcorn and bought Coca-Cola off the charts, so much so that they made them illegal. They made those frequencies illegal in the early 60s. And do we really think
No,
that they
never
stop?
stop.
That they stop? Yeah, they stopped. I mean, like, really?
Well, there's a third frame rule too, where they stick a little picture in every third frame of video, so it would just hit you. You would never even know you've seen it.
Never seen it.
Never seen
And then you would want it because subconsciously it's being programmed. The subconscious is everything.
Yeah, everything.
Repetitive and programming.
Yes, it is.
And that's how you train someone.
That's how you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now currently, thank you for having us. We're very honored to be in your
I'm very honored to be here with you guys.
healing center is what I...
Well, we don't call it a healing center. We call it Keys to Life Wellness, okay? Because we don't heal anything. We make no claims in any form of the fashion. We give all the glory to God. And we just give the temple what we believe God intended it to have, and it heals itself, plain and simple. And that's what they can't stand. Right there, that temple will heal itself when you give it what God intended it to have. And that's why it's so important to educate yourself about the water, the food, the air. They're poisoning all those things because they realize that's what makes us tick. So if they want to make it not tick as good, but they don't want to kill you. They don't want you dead, because if you're dead, they can't make no more money out of you. So they want you to nice and slowly, gradually decrease, gradually die, but not completely. Then they want you to go to an old folks' home so you can pay $5,000 to $10,000 a month so you can drain every single penny that you had that you were going to pass on to your children, your grandchildren, because the last thing they want you to do is pass that on to your children, your grandchildren. Right. They want you to die penniless and broke in the old folks' home with nothing, because the last thing they want to do is have a transfer of wealth.
Right. That's true. Let's talk a little bit about this beautiful machine back there. Tell everybody.
This is my, let's see, this would be my bod pod was my first child, and then my son and my daughter were second. This would be my fourth child. Okay, and I want more children too. I'm going to have more children too, because I was not the best of father with my kids, because I was trying to do everything, and I want more children, and I want to have my next children on the beach with no medical doctor, nice, with no vaccines, completely, totally in the microbiome. But this is my fourth child. This is a Keys to Life med bed. This is not the government med bed that regrows limbs, but we believe this is the most advanced technology that's been released to market as of yet, where we're taking frequencies, we're taking Rife technology, Tesla technology, and we're putting those frequencies back into the temple and giving the temple what it needs to heal itself. It's very simple. It's not real hard.
Yeah, very simple. And it's a beautiful machine.
Yes, it is.
Just looking at it makes me feel
very, very futuristic. Looks and perception is everything. And this machine looks amazing, but what's really happening underneath there with the scalar waves, with the Tesla technology, with the Rife technology, is like nothing you've ever seen. And that's why it's so important for you guys to experience this. And as I said earlier, if you don't believe frequencies are real, these little chips, this is what got me into every NFL locker room, Major League Baseball, the NCAA. I would literally sit at the hotel rooms that these NFL teams were playing they were staying at, and I would wait for a Brett Favre or a Ray Lewis or whoever to come in, and I still can't believe this actually happened. This was all God, because these athletes are multi-million-dollar athletes. And I would sit there and I would wait for one of these guys to come by, and I would see him, kind of walking funny, and knew he had a knee problem or shoulder problem, because I know the body. And I'd walk up to him and I was like, dude, you okay? He's like, oh, my shoulder's killing. I was like, well, you mind if I take the pain away? And he's like, what? I was like, yeah. He said, sure. And I'd take the little chip and I'd put it right there. And
they worked.
Instantaneously, he looks at me like, oh my God, what'd you just do? Well, you're a witch doctor. No, bro, this is of God. But looking back, and I'm like, why did those athletes let me do that? Because who knows what this was? I mean, this could have been any kind of LSD or acid or any kind of, it really could have. Sure. But I guess it was just the frequency that I was resonating, and they knew I was real, and they trusted me. And I was able to take that little chip, put on their shoulder, put on their knee, instantaneously the pain was greatly decreased, if not gone. They would then bring me in to their other brothers, and we would show this to them, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Went on to win 4 national championships, 3 Super Bowls. And if we can do that with that little chip, if we can do that little chip, just imagine what we can do if we can put more frequencies into the temple, plain and simple. And that's a challenge. Anybody out there, text me your name, address, and email. I'll send these to you for free. They will not cost you anything. Sometimes it takes a little while because USPS has lost thousands of my packages. I don't have ESP yet, so I have no clue if you didn't get them. So if you didn't get them in 7 days, text me again. Don't say, Christopher won't send them to me. He's a scam. He don't. Yes, I send them out and I send them out and I'll send them out again. I don't have ESP. I'm working on that, but I don't have it. So I don't know if you don't receive it. But more importantly, guys, I love it. I truly love when it doesn't work for somebody. When somebody out there put this on, it didn't work for their shoulder pain, their knee pain, I want to know why. Yeah. I want to conversate. You got my number, 205-936-9803. I'll take every single phone call I can. If I'm not on the phone, I take the phone call. And guys, if you keep calling me, you're never bothering me, you keep calling me. The best way to get in touch with me is text. The more times you text me, it goes to the front of my message, and I go back to those first. So if you use these and they don't work, call me, text me. I want to talk to you individually. I want to find out why God made you different, so I can go back to the drawing board and make these better. Because this is what this is about, is making this technology better, because the science is never settled. Never. Anybody that tells you the science is settled, start running, because science will always be changing. The only thing that's settled is scientism. And that's what these people are practicing, scientism. Do you understand that the earth is set on pillars, unmovable? Do you understand that?
I do. Do you want to explain? Because I think it's a very...
It's another one of those... Quickly. It's another one of those that I went down this rabbit hole about 10 years, and I'm like, really? There are people that still think the earth is flat. Oh my God, that guy's a nut. But then it came up a second time. And then it came up a third time. I'm like, really, Lord? I got to test and prove whether the earth is round or flat? I mean, come on.
Is there water on it?
I was like, oh my gosh. And I went down that rabbit hole. And guys, that was one of the most important red pills I took, because I was that guy 10 years ago that I believed there were billions and billions of planets. I believed, why would my God create all these billions and billions of planets and not put other species on there?
Exactly.
And then I began to think, well, we're not very significant if there's billions and billions of other planets out there, and that made God seem less significant. And that's what they did. They did that by design, because they didn't want us to understand that we were the center of everything.
Well, we are
that God created us in His image.
Yes.
Our God created us.
Yes.
And that's what happened with this round world, is that they created this round earth that's spinning around 300 miles an hour, through space at 3,000 miles an hour, through a galaxy at 3 million miles. I'm like, what? And I started thinking about it. I'm like, God, I was stupid. How could I believe that? And the one that drives me crazy, how can I stand up and do that?
Hand over there.
No, that's one thing. How can I do that? But more importantly, how can I do that? And on the other side of me, there's a billion, if not trillion pounds of water. And that water is still stuck to the earth. How is it that gravity is holding that billions and trillions of pounds of water stuck to there, and I can do that? I mean, I'm just like, oh my gosh, how could I believe this? How?
Atmospheric pressure is like 7
It's called gravity.
No, it's called density. It is density. It's mass divided by... There is no gravity. There is no gravity. But I so appreciate Flat Earth, because it really, it's so much...
It made you start the questioning. It literally did for a lot of people, I think, and especially...
I mean, I was already questioning, but it helped bring me back to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ even more, because I finally realized that we were the center of everything. All these other planets were nothing but twinkles in the night. There is no aliens. Now, there may be, I don't know what's on the other side of Antarctica, and there may be people that are way more advanced than we are, but I don't believe there's anything above us except for the firmament. The dome, plain and simple. Love it. I didn't know you guys were flat earthers.
Oh yeah. We're crazy too.
There we go. Hey, I'm amongst friends. There we go. I love it.
Well, we appreciate you today.
Let's get your website so people can
Yes.
find it.
The best way to help support what we do, guys. I'm not supported by Big Pharma, Big Government, Big Oil. I'm supported by you. And the best way to help support what we're doing is vaccine-police.com. You don't leave out the dash. And then the other way to support us is through our products, okay? These products have been vetted by me personally. These are products that I utilize myself and I put in my own temple. And the best way to find my IGF-1 is getigf1.com. The best way to remember that is G as in God, E as in energy, T as in Trump, I as in idiot. Yes, Trump is an idiot. An idiot for bringing this bioweapon to market. I said it, I will continue to say it because that is my belief. G as in God, F as in frequency, the number 1. Did I do somewhere? Getigf1.com. Get getigf1.com. I can't spell. To get my deer antler velvet, and then lastly, if you want to get our water machines, if you want to get our air devices, if you want to get Dr. Groot's products, our Cardio Miracle, it's airwaterhealing.com, airwaterhealing.com. And then finally, if you want to make an appointment to come see us here at Boynton Beach, right outside of West Palm, you call me at 205-936-9803. If you want to get the pain and energy chips, text me your name, address, and email to 205-936-9803. Thank y'all so very much. Love you all. God bless. We win. Please understand the power that each and every one of you individually has, and please help us by sharing this information far and wide. 1 turns to 2, 2 turns to 4. The genie's out of the bottle. The snowball's already going downhill. We just need your help to share the information.
And you can find Clearview, Doug White and Gina Muley Freistack on Rumble, Clearview, as well as Telegram. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Love it.
Thanks, guys.
Hello, I'm Louis Herms with ScrewBigGov.com, and I'm encouraging you to support this channel. Truthers worldwide do a lot of work, and clearly recognition is really what we're not looking for, but sometimes we need support in the form of just liking, forwarding, subscribing, and if you could support some products that they sell if they have efficacy. So today I'd like to talk about NutraSwish, and this is something that I'm actually traveling with. I'm traveling right now currently. What a most phenomenal product I've ever run into. So I just put it in my mouth, and it's a glutathione base and has nanotechnology, not nanobots. Don't get triggered. So nanotechnology, where it actually just swish it in your mouth and it assimilates at a level that's never been done before. They can't even do this properly, in my opinion, with intravenous glutathione, which costs thousands of dollars a month. So as low as $60 a month, and it's not a monthly subscription unless you want it to be, you can get what I think is one of the most healthy products for us on the planet. For 7 months, I had a serious lung issue when doing the Truth Tours, and I couldn't get over it. I was coughing incessantly all the time. After 2 weeks on NutraSwishes by a company called Numi, the glutathione, just amazingly, the results I got. My hair turned very dark, which is weird because I used to have all silver. So that's cool. That's just a positive side effect. No more acid reflux. Now, these are not an FDA endorsed message, obviously, and these are my personal story. I can tell you I'm hearing hundreds of stories like this of people getting in phenomenal health just by getting this wonderful glutathione into our body. In addition, so you know, I'm actually 172 years old, but because I'm using Numi Skin, now I look 136 years old. So it's really doing wonders for me also. Folks, on the serious side, these are some of the most important and relevant products with efficacy on the planet that I've ever seen. You may or may not know me, but if you know it, I rarely endorse something unless I've really vetted them strongly, and I have. So wonderful, wonderful way to get healthy and support the wonderful truthers that you're watching right now. So just go down below, click the link below, and it'll say numi.com/ and go ahead and enjoy the products, and please continue to support these wonderful truthers because they really are working hard to get the word out. Thank you, and God bless.